We'll call the Sartell City Council meeting to order for June 22nd. First up is Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next up on tonight's agenda is agenda review and adoption. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted. Next up is open forum public comment. We've got two signed up tonight. First up is Joe Persky. Just a reminder of the open forum rules. Please state your name, address. I will start a timer. We normally have a timer on the screen. We don't tonight. 3 minutes. Council is not able to respond directly to comments made. They are at a future council meeting. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you. Actually, I wrote a few notes here because I didn't anticipate speaking tonight, but actually, after talking to Jeff during the day here, he said, why don't you come on and talk to the council? So I did get a chance to speak with you and the mayor, the council, except for Brady. But for many, I'm Joe Persky, live at 509 North 10th Street, Sartell, former council member, former mayor. Now I'm presently the county commissioner here in Stearns. Also worked here in Sartell as a teacher for over 25 years and taught thousands of kids. And that's one of the reasons I'm here tonight. I guess I'm looking at last week's meeting, or last time you folks had a meeting, and I'd like you to reconsider the decision that you made, I believe, as far as removing the outdoor shelter and outdoor rink over at Pinecone Regional Park. If we go back to 2003 when that was first developed, the city received some Mighty Ducks grant money and put up perhaps as much as $1 million developing that park. And now what I understand is from the plans that were adopted last meeting that that shelter and that rink is going to be removed. Well, I tell you, that rink out there is a considerable amenity to a lot of kids, not just for those kids that play regular hockey, but for the whole community, those that skate and those that thought they were hockey players like myself, those that were rink rats that would come at dark and play under the street light, and those that would go and shovel the snow when the city didn't clear it and have a lot of fun. But we take away that amenity, how do we replace it, and who replaces it? I think it would be a great loss if that shelter and that rink is taken out of there. A couple other things as well is I take a look at other things in that proposal. We had, I believe it was, what was it? If I can find it in my notes here, $450,000 of the half-cent sales tax. Well, that half-cent sales tax goes through 2038. Well, with the commitments that we made, I believe most of that money is already spent or taken accountable for. And if we're going to do other amenities for the rest of the kids, I don't know where the rest of that money is going to happen. As well as $480,000 from the lease from the golf course. Taking that money away again, I don't know what money's left, you know, for the next 20 years for other amenities in the community. And in addition, where there's some other spending, and the whole total came to $1.5 million. Well, if you take into account the $750,000 that was put into the parking lot, you know, that's well over a $2 million commitment to the kids that play hockey here. For decades, we've talked about other amenities in this community. We talked about a pool. When we talked about the half-cent sales tax, was always, oh, we're going to get that pool when we get that half-cent. We also talked about a skate park. For decades, kids were waiting to see a skate park happen in this town. Persky, when are you going to build that skate park? When are you going to build that skate park? Well, when we get the next half-cent sales tax. Well, we got the next half-cent sales tax. We even had $30,000 set aside for equipment. We were going to put it on the rink.
Apologize, that's time.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we are, you know, incorporating everybody here in the community and not just a few. So I'd like you to make
Thanks,
a
Joe.
consideration. Thank you.
Next up that signed up is Barika Davis. Oh, did we figure it out? Perfect.
Just wait.
I hate when you can't see it and I have to cut you off.
I'm good. I'm waiting for you.
Can
Oh, no.
Hey,
My name is
hold on.
Rick.
We'll restart that. False start.
Okay, Barika Davis, 711 10th Street South, Sartell, Minnesota. I'm here about the court discussion, but I think it might be a little bit different than what Joe might be talking about. I'm talking about the basketball court that's located in the Wilds neighborhood, and that is set to be relocated to the Watap Creek Park, which currently is slated to have a basketball court, a tennis court, and a pickleball court already put in through that grant that we got. I think it was like $500,000. So my only issue with the court being removed is I heard it was based on neighborhood complaints, and I spoke with park users today, and they said they had no problem utilizing the facility. There was never a discussion about lack of restrooms or increased traffic or things like that. So I've got to speak with Ryan on the matter a little bit. And I'm just concerned that the stem of the issue is that the neighborhood residents are concerned with the people who are now utilizing that basketball court, people who look like myself. So I'm just concerned that this is now a priority when it shouldn't be a priority, and we're moving it to Watap Creek Park, even though we already have grant funds for that money. And so moving the pickleball and the tennis courts to now the Wilds, which they already had a tennis court. It wasn't successful. They wanted the basketball court, and those residents didn't have any complaints, and now they're having complaints due to the increased number of kiddos who don't look like them, who are possibly playing loud music. And what I've heard from residents who did live over there, that said, well, when I did talk to them to turn the music down, it wasn't an issue. So my concern is, why is this now a priority, and now we're reallocating money that was already determined to be for the Watap Creek Park? That was it.
Thank
Didn't
you.
even need 3 minutes.
All right. Don't have anyone else signed up. Next up is special presentations on the bond sale. Turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jason Arsvold. I'm with Ellers, and here to talk to you tonight about a sale of bonds that we've been working with staff to prepare, the proceeds of which will be used to finance public safety facility, utility improvements, and street reconstruction work. In preparation for that sale, we did work to have the bonds rated, and I believe you saw the report from Standard & Poor's affirming the city's AA rating. So that's a great rating, 2 notches below the top rating that they assign. In the report, if you read through it, they highlighted the strong economy in the city here, but also the strong management of the organization. And so that really weights in heavily to how they assign the ratings within the community. So it's a testament to the work that you all have done to maintain that high rating. And then we think that that reflects itself in the bidding process. So what we do is we put your debt out to bid essentially, and we take the lowest bidder. So we did that process this morning at 11 o'clock in our office, and we received 5 bids, the lowest of which was Piper at 1.364%. So we're in a pretty great environment to be selling bonds. The rates are very favorable. And I think in the report that you have there, you'll see the different bidders. The rates were very, very close together as well. So it's a good indication that, excuse me, you've got a good representation of the market that's out there today. And so with that also came a premium. So meaning they paid more cash than the face value of the bonds. It allowed us to reduce the net amount that you're actually obligated to repay. So what you'll see is that instead of the number that you have in your resolution there in the packet today, the revised amount is $5,925,000. So when you get to the point in the agenda of considering this sale, that's the correct amount to be utilizing there. So again, the action tonight that you have would be eventually to award the sale to that low bidder, and from there we would work to close the bond sale, which will happen in about 3 weeks. So that's the brief summary, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions or go into any more detail about the sale or the rating.
Council, any questions on the sale of bonds? Seeing no questions, appreciate it. Thank you. That's an amazingly low rate.
Very good, yes.
And again, a testament to current and past staff for keeping us in this position, and nothing further. Next up on the agenda is approval of city council minutes. We've got June 8th, regular meeting. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item number 6, consent agenda. I will be removing item 6E. Again, that's at bond sales resolution. We'll be making that correction. Is there anything else, any matter anyone else wants to discuss or have removed? Mike?
I'd like to pull 6B and 6D.
6B and 6D.
Boy and David.
Yep. Anyone else? Look for a motion to approve 6A, 6C, and 6F.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Mike, 6B, we'll take them in order.
Just some clarification from staff if possible. We're looking at $108,000 in sales tax money that's going into a trail fund. Am I correct that that's over and above the usual monies that we get from the half-cent sales tax?
Councilmember, Mayor and Councilmember, that is part of the total collection that gets taken off up front.
Okay.
So that $108,250 was agreed upon for over the 20 years. Annually, you'll get that allocation. So it's not an additional collection. It comes out of the existing, starting with 2019. That's why you see 2 years here. And going forward, now that we'll have this fund established, it'll go directly into that. And then as mayor and council, when you spend money on trails, that's the funding source.
Right. And even though that money is coming from the half-cent sales tax, we can't use it for anything but trails.
That's correct.
Thank you. I'd move to approve 6B.
Motion to approve 6B.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6B carries. Mike, 6D.
6D is the community center policy, and I was reviewing it, and I have a few concerns. The first is in the pricing, looking at the cost of hourly rentals. I'd like us to consider reducing the rental fees for the conference rooms to perhaps $10 an hour for a 2-hour minimum, if that rental is for adult Sartell community education classes. The reason why I'm looking for that is because I've actually utilized those classes myself. I've taken a couple of them. The instructors of those classes pay for that space or the room rental out of their pocket. They're not, they don't get that rental space for free. At least they haven't thus far. So if you're running a class and you're charging people $10 and 6 people show up, that's $50, but you've just spent $40 in fees for the rental, you're clearly not gonna be doing something like that. And I think if we add language to put in the $10 provision for specifically adult Sartell community education classes, that allows us to eliminate the possibility of other rentals trying to take advantage of that rate. So if that's something we could discuss and possibly work on. The other, another concern I have is the community center food policy. Now, everyone's gonna say that I'm splitting hairs, and I probably am, but part of the policy says that any dispensing of food and beverages not by certain approved vendors is a violation of the policy. By using the terms any dispensing, basically we make it a violation of the policy for a parent or a coach to give a kid an orange or a Powerade during halftime of a game, because that's dispensing. And if that coach isn't an approved caterer, then that's a violation of the policy. And I know that's not what we had in mind, but that's how it reads. So I would suggest that we put in language creating an exemption that allows parents and coaches to provide snacks and beverages during timeouts, halftime, between periods, or sets of a game without violating the policy. The exemption applies to breaks within a game, and that exemption ends after the game has ended. There's another concern with community center animals. We correctly allow service animals, but I think we should include language that prohibits emotional support animals. The reason being, emotional support animals are not considered service animals by the ADA, and there's basically no training or certifications at all that goes into emotional support animals. So essentially, by allowing emotional support animals or not specifically prohibiting them, anyone could take their dog into the community center at any time simply by claiming that it's an emotional support animal. And then finally, the last concern I have, and this is more of a question for staff, is a general question. Assuming that there's nothing going on in the gym, it hasn't been rented, reserved, there's no games going on, can an individual drop in, pay the $30 drop-in fee and play basketball or volleyball or what have you at any time, or is open gym specifically limited to specific hours?
There's a set schedule for the open gym.
Okay.
Sometimes they can be in there for open gym depending on what other events and rentals that we have in there.
Okay.
And it depends, Mike, if the nets are down, what event was before.
There's a lot of setup that needs to take place.
Okay, all right. So what I would do at this point is I would move to include the language giving a $10 discount or a $10 fee for adult Sartell community education courses. I would move to include the provision allowing an exemption for the snacks and beverages during the timeouts as I outlined earlier. And I would also move to prohibit emotional support animals from being allowed in the community center.
There's a formal motion out there for item 6D, amendments. I guess at this point, prior to discussion, I'd ask if there's a second to support that.
I do have other discussions, so I don't know where we want to add that.
You want to discuss before you say?
I don't know how we would normally do that.
We can, and I'll second it just to simply get to a point in which we should be discussing it. So I will second the motion that you've made. And a couple items for discussion is that, and you listed a number. First and foremost, the school district community ed staff is actually one in collaboration with our staff that drafted the new policy. And so there's a lot that needs to be considered as part of that policy. One is the fee schedule. Another is complying with regulations on serving food. That's been a topic that has come before Mike and I on past councils a numerous amount of times, as we have a licensed kitchen there. And so I don't think it'd be appropriate for us tonight to make those amendments here. I think we'd be better off to send that back to staff to work with the school district staff and to review that.
Yep.
Prior to coming back, and this has gone from staff to our facilities committee, which is Brady and I for the school facilities. And I think we need to give respect to that channel, that flow. So,
I think the issues you brought up, Mike, are great issues, and it's definitely should be addressed. One of them, one question I have, those adult community education. What about the children's community education if they're being charged for a meeting room? I don't know if we want to limit it just to adults, but that's something that I believe that should be worked out in a committee. So hopefully we can just bring it back to committee.
Yeah, if there's consensus within the council to send those issues back to committee to have those looked at, then I would withdraw my motion and instead move to table approval of the community center policy at this time.
staff, is there timeliness, any concern on that if we were to review those and come back at next council? Okay. Are you withdrawing?
Then I would withdraw and move to table D.
The motion has been amended to table 6D and send it back for review.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 6E, process-wise, we need to have just a vote on it rather than as part of our consent agenda. Also wanted to make that amendment of the total dollar amount, which is $5,925,000. And so with that, I'd make the motion to approve the bond sale as amended.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That item carries. And point of order, our looks like our Facebook Live feed has gone down. I can see that we're working on getting that up. Yeah, and so we'll continue on with the agenda, the public hearings. If we don't have it up and going by the time we get to the sport court discussion, I think that is an important topic, and I want to make sure that that's available to as many as possible. And so I guess if we get to that point and it's not up and running, I would call for a recess and allow.
I do believe it's still on, I just can't access it through this specific computer.
Again, just point of order, we'll continue on, but wanted to make that recognized. First up is public hearing variance request. Scott.
Mayor and council, you have in your packets under item 7A, there is a variance request of 3 requests for variances for Sartell Pediatrics located at 111 2nd Street South. A little background on the variance requests. This is a public hearing on 3 variance requests for Sartell Pediatrics. Variances include green space reduction for impervious surfaces, parking quantity requirement changes, and building and setback requirement changes for the right-of-way located north of the property. This application was reviewed at Planning Commission, and they made the recommendation to approve during Planning Commission. Just a little bit more information in regards to the variance request number 1 for green space. Currently, our city code requires 25% green space. They are requesting 20% green space. Variance request number 2 for parking quantities. Currently, our city code requires 65 parking spaces. Applicant is requesting 55 for total parking spaces. We did have discussion around staff and availability space throughout the parking lot for clients and things like that. There weren't any concerns with that. And then variance request number 3 was the building and parking setback, and again, that was to the north of the property. Currently, we have a 30-foot setback requirement to that right-of-way. There is a current First Street South is located to the north of that property. That is just currently a right-of-way. Their request is to move building setback from 30 feet to 20 feet, or 25 feet, sorry, and then do a zero setback on, a zero setback for parking. So you can see on the map, up to the top, kind of in that shaded brown area, that is that existing right-of-way. You can see in the green, the setback and the zero, for parking, 0-foot setback is located, it runs parallel to that property. The new addition is kind of in that light gray, white area, moving to the north of the building. Again, this was approved by Planning Commission to move forward to council. Is there any questions on the current variance requests?
Council, before I open the public hearing, any questions? Mike?
Did you have one, Tim?
No, go on.
Mike?
As far as the neighbors on either side, any concerns that have been expressed by them?
There has been some calls in regards to the properties to the north. I think if I pronounce it right, Hildy, where that's located. I did speak with a resident to the northwest corner. She just had some questions around what exactly the details were in each variance. Talking through that, she did state that she was planning to come to tonight's meeting. I'm not sure if she is here. But it was more so providing more definition to the right-of-way and what the specifics were to the right-of-way.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we open the public hearing? All right, it looks like Facebook Live's back up and running, so that's awesome. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify on the proposed variance request, 1 through 3, please step forward. Second offer, anyone wishing to testify on the variance request? Third and final offer, anyone wishing to testify? We will close the public hearing. Council, any additional questions for staff? Seeing none, I would look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion a second. Any discussion, deliberation? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next public hearing is on massage ordinance.
Mayor, members of the council, you have in front of you the massage ordinance that was proposed several meetings ago, and we tabled it at that time so that we could come back together and meet with the massage therapist organizations within City of Sartell and look through the ordinance and fee schedule and make a few revisions to it. So we had the opportunity to do that over the past 2 months and developed an ordinance that I am proud to say that we work collectively together with the massage therapists to develop, and I think it's something that they are really proud of and satisfied and happy with. So we'd be looking for a public hearing to review that ordinance, and then after the public hearing, approval on the ordinance, and then also the joint powers agreement with the City of St. Cloud to help enforce the ordinance.
Council, any questions for staff prior to opening the public hearing? Mike?
It's not a question, but I looked at and I was part of the group that hammered this thing out and worked it out. But looking at massage therapist section 3-14-8, subdivision B parens 5, those are the things that can make someone ineligible for licensing. One of the things that we discussed at the meetings as being something that we might want to take a look at and eliminate was the requirement that someone or someone could be denied a license if they were not of, quote, good moral character or repute. And we determined that in 2020, that's very, very vague and almost impossible to enforce. So I would, prior to the opening of the public meeting, ask that that single line be eliminated from the ordinance and deleted. I don't think the individuals that we worked with from the various groups would have any concern with eliminating that language. I think leaving that language in there does ultimately put us in a position where we could ultimately be challenged and end up in a situation that we don't want to be in. So I would ask that, or move if necessary, that language be stricken. But outside of that, I'm prepared to go forward with and sign off on the ordinance.
We'll continue with the public hearing, and then we can take a motion after we've closed the public hearing and heard testimony at that time.
Fair enough.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing on the proposed massage ordinance. Anyone wishing to testify, please step forward. Second offer, anyone wishing to testify? Third and final offer, anyone wishing to testify? We'll close the public hearing. To Mike's point, we as council, and I think there's been a number of council members that have been involved in some review of this. I think Sartell's taking a great stand in supporting our massage businesses here. Frankly, had we adopted what was just sent over to us from the county, it would have actually shut down businesses in our community. And that's not the intent. The intent of the ordinance is to support our businesses that are here, that have been here for many years, and run a great business. So yeah, that's all I guess I would offer right now. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments? I guess maybe procedurally we should act get a motion there so we have something to debate. Mike, you had made a motion.
Right, I would move to eliminate the good moral character or repute language in section 3-14-8, subdivision B, parens 5.
And I'll second that to move it forward. Sorry, Tim.
Oh, I just wanted to kind of reinforce what Brian had said initially. I'm glad that we reached out and worked with the community and of the professionals that were out there. The last time, if you weren't here, it was a very emotional meeting, and it struck a chord with most of the council members on some policies that we look at up here and sometimes don't have faces to them. And this definitely had a face to it. And as we brought them back in and started to craft the ordinance, I think the input from people that actually are providing that service and in that career, in that profession, is huge. So I'm glad that we've got something on there.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to thank the people if they're in the room. I don't know if they are not, as far as who helped with that committee. That's all these issues should be resolved in a committee. Get them straight before they come to us. So it worked out real good.
Yeah, and if I may, I'm sorry, Brady, go ahead.
Brady.
Yeah, great job with everyone involved and obviously resoluting that situation.
Mike, do you have something else?
Just kind of going off of what Tim said, the original language in the ordinance that was presented was very restrictive as to what kind of training or what organization could train someone that could ultimately get a license. And we didn't realize that there are a lot of basically diploma mill type places that would have been approved under that language, whereas there's other schools that have been in existence in China and India and other places that have a worldwide reputation that would not have been allowed under that language. So I do appreciate the input of everyone that worked on it, and it was, as Tim kind of indicated, kind of an eye-opening experience for us, and I'm very happy with what we have. I'm hoping ultimately the township will come on board and approve our ordinance as well, so that it applies within the township as well. But that's a discussion for another day.
Chief Hughes, do you see any concerns from removing that line item?
Excuse me, because unfortunately it would probably fall on us and our background check.
Sure.
To make that determination, and I don't know how one can.
Sure, yep. And Anna, I just want to be respectful. That wouldn't jeopardize our joint powers agreement. I think to Chief's point, that'd probably fall back on us to determine anyways. St. Cloud wouldn't be doing that?
Correct, yep. I think that we'd be okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Everyone's been offered the opportunity to speak. Guess I call for a vote on the amendment Mike has made, approving the massage ordinance. And Mike, are you including the fee schedule ordinance in that as well as it stands?
Yes. The only thing I'm deleting is that language I outlined.
Okay. And I'll continue with the second on that. Any clarification questions on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries as amended. Staff, did we get that amendment? Okay, thanks. Next, I'd be looking for a motion approving the joint powers agreement with the City of St. Cloud for enforcing.
I'll move that.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any debate? Questions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Real quick, I want to check in on our status of Facebook Live.
It was up, then it's down.
Okay. Council, we're going to give it a minute to see if we can reset, otherwise we'll officially recess if we cannot.
Technology. Got it.
You'd think Facebook Live would be the one that would stick and work.
So much for modern technology.
Yeah. We're live? All right. Positive? Can you acknowledge if it does go down? Yes. Thank you. Yep, it just went live. All right, good. Council, under old business, we have the sport court discussion. This is a matter that that staff has been reviewing for some time. And I guess a little background on it. The court has had previously been a tennis court, was converted over to a sport court maybe a year or two ago. It is getting the most utilization now that it has since being installed, which is a very much a positive, and I do believe all of council views that as a positive. The neighborhood that it's in, we have had recently installed stop signs. We're continuing to get requests for more stop signs due to traffic and congestion in that area. It is located in a neighborhood park, and the proposal that staff had been working through is to move it to a regional park setting. And so it's a sport court tiles. It's something that our public works crew can pick up the tiles and relatively easily move that over to another court. The benefit of moving it is that we've got additional parking, we've got restroom stalls, we've got lighting. It will encourage greater use of that court and that facility than what we currently are allowed to have today. Today, again, it's in a neighborhood park. It doesn't have ample parking. It doesn't have restroom facilities. And it doesn't have lighting. There's been a ton of people that have reached out in a very positive manner, asking questions. I've taken a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. Barika and I spoke earlier. I've chatted with a number of people, and I think there's some incorrect narratives out there, but I don't think we can hide behind. There is tension there. There's absolute tension in that neighborhood between the park goers and the neighborhood there. And I think by making this move, not only we support the greater utilization of that full court basketball court, but we also ease those tensions. And I think we need to be very mindful of that. And whichever direction we as council go tonight, that it remains a very open and welcoming, and that we're doing this in an effort to continue to spur the utilization of all of our parks and facilities. So that I felt might set the stage for where we're at, what is actually being proposed. And staff, did I miss anything on that? Okay. Before us is a motion to make that move, essentially making that swap full court basketball down to Wad Tab Park, where we'd be swapping the tiles of and then you can see the, I don't know, maybe we can put the picture up on the overhead of the different courts. And so I do expect we'll have some debate on this tonight. In order to do so, I'd like to see a motion to get us to a point where we can debate it.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and then I'd open up for debate. Or questions or comments?
I guess I would have one question regards to the full court. Will it be two 10-foot rims as a full court as it exists now, currently, once transferred?
John, maybe you can highlight that.
Yeah, it'll be identical to what it is. It'll be just a much narrower on each side, but it'll be the identical court with tiles over. I think we're gonna miss one tile on each side to
Okay.
fit in there decently, give a walkway between the tennis court and the basketball court.
So what we see on the screen here is the replacement or the swap. So that'll still allow a half-court basketball within that neighborhood park, along with pickleball, utilizing the same footprint. So both those courts utilize the same footprint. Any other, Brady, anything else?
And currently at the WATAB, the tennis court is just in, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Tennis court is installed.
all right, that's it.
Mike?
Did you have a comment? Well, council members, I'm adamantly opposed to this idea and this project. And there's a few things that I think need to be discussed. As you indicated, there are underlying currents in this situation. And I think we do a disservice to our community and our country by ignoring what is in fact the real problem. Mayor, you said that we've been reviewing this for some time. I've been on the council as long as you have. We were sworn in essentially the same day. You were sworn in a couple of weeks early to take over Amy's spot. We were elected on the same day. Never once have I heard any discussion about moving the court from the Wilds to anywhere else due to traffic problems, parking problems, and lack of a bathroom. You said that council or that staff has been reviewing this for some time. I have never heard of any directive to staff to review this issue. On Saturday, June 13th, 2020, I opened my email and read a letter from Anna Gruber, our city administrator, indicating that the basketball court in the Wilds Park was being moved to WATAB. I texted Anna and learned that the plan is for the pickleball courts destined for WATAB to be relocated to Wilds. I was completely unaware that that decision had been made. I was completely unaware that that topic had been broached. I was completely unaware that there was any concern at all. I was very concerned at that time, and I continue to be concerned that that plan of action was never discussed by this council, nor was a vote ever taken authorizing that action or that plan. I reached out to Anna, Councilmember Kolb, and the mayor to learn when the decision was made and under what authority the decision was made. The mayor indicated that he was not entirely sure and would need to check with city staff on those details. As I dealt with the situation and looked at it, I learned that the recent problem has developed as young black men who live in St. Cloud were using the basketball court. There had been a number of noise complaints concerning music and reports of foul language around little children. Both the loud music and the language is understandably unwelcome. Councilmember Kolb indicated that some of the neighborhood kids had been harassed or threatened, and that the people who live near the park are concerned for their safety. I contacted our police chief, Chief Hughes, who indicated the PD had received 3 calls concerning the noise and language. He did not indicate that any calls had included harassment or threats being made, although he did, in fairness to the chief, acknowledge that that might have happened and he may have missed the reports. I then texted Anna again, and she indicated that City Hall and her personally have received a number of complaints of noise and language. Again, no complaints about parking, no complaints about bathrooms, no complaints about lights, no complaints about traffic going in and out of the park. I learned that after our meeting last Monday night, there was a discussion that involved some council members on this issue. I was not included in those discussions. As a result of those discussions, staff was tasked with finding a solution to the problem. During staff meetings, John, our Director of Public Works, floated the idea of moving the court, and that plan was ultimately approved by staff. It needs to be made clear that John was acting at the direction of members of the council and working with staff in his capacity. He is a problem solver. He was given a problem to solve, and that's what he did. There should be absolutely no negative connotations given to John at all. That would be completely undeserved. I was very disappointed and upset by the fact that from Monday night, when that gathering occurred, to Saturday morning, no one thought to include me in the discussion. My input or thoughts on the issue were not requested. And to this day, I have not received an explanation as to why I was excluded from that conversation. I did write a letter to my fellow council members and CC'd Anna asking that the actions taken be delayed. And the reason why was, first of all, that this was not the type of decision that should be left to staff to make. The issue should have been discussed at the full council meeting on June 8th. That meeting ended at 7:30 p.m. after a vote on the Shields Athletic Complex / ice expansion. There was plenty of time for discussion. I believe the council abdicated our responsibilities as elected leaders to address this issue openly. We created plausible denial, and quite frankly, I think we threw city staff under the bus. I do acknowledge that over the last weeks, essentially since COVID-19 began, there have been young black men playing on the basketball courts. There has been a noise problem, and there has been problems with the music. One of the solutions that I considered was the fact that there's no signs up at the park that dictate any sort of expected behavior or hours of the park. Putting up such signs would, in fact, give law enforcement the opportunity for an enforcement mechanism. I also questioned why, if the goal of the exercise was to get loud music and foul language away from children, why was the solution to that problem to move the full-length basketball court to the Watab Park right next to the splash pad, which is a space specifically designed to be used by small children. Saturday evening, I spoke to two young men at the basketball court. They acknowledged that when the whole group is playing, music can get too loud and that their language is not appropriate for the kids. I told them that I was opposed to moving the court, and they agreed that they would try and get everyone to turn down the music and knock off the language. That may or may not work ultimately, but we should give it time rather than make a decision in a week. The reality is that in between 2.5 to 3 months, it'll be snowing and no one will be playing basketball out there anyways. We can always come back and revisit this. But I also asked to delay this because of the current political and social atmosphere in our country. The court in the wilds was never a problem until about a month and a half to a month ago. It is a public park that is open to anyone that wants to use it, just as Wilson Park in St. Cloud is open to anyone that wants to use that. Sartell has a reputation as an affluent, primarily Caucasian suburban city. In speaking to the young men, they made it clear to me that they know or strongly feel that it is being moved because of the fact that they are black and they are unwelcome in the neighborhood. The city of Sartell has already been the subject of a number of social media posts. If we go forward with making this decision in today's political and social atmosphere, we will have to defend that decision in the media, on social media, with news outlets, and other governmental agencies. The announcement of the park change was done with these signs: Park Reorganization Project. The city will be removing the Wilds Park basketball court and relocating it to the Wattab Park the week of June 15th. Prior to seeing this sign on Saturday afternoon, I had never heard of nor been involved with anything called a park reorganization project. The reality is that this council just voted to give hockey, a predominantly white sport, millions of dollars in cash and waive fees over the next 5 years. And now the city is telling black basketball players from St. Cloud that they have to be removed from our neighborhoods. I do believe that the city is trying to be responsive to citizens' complaints about noise and language. There have been no issues with the courts until this group of young men arrived. The kids who feel unwelcome in Sartell will make that known, and the story will spread like wildfire. As a result of that letter, the decision to move the court was delayed. Over the last week, I've been keeping an eye on the Wilds Park situation, have been digging into it, and have determined the following. The existence of and the use of the basketball court has not been an issue until COVID-19 resulted in the St. Cloud Parks, the YMCA, the Sartell Community Center, and Whitney all being unavailable for basketball. Those areas are slowly being reopened, so it would follow that the Wilds Park should see a decrease in use. I have met with the players that are playing basketball on a number of occasions. I have heard inappropriate language, but frankly, it's nothing that is uncommon in sports, even at the youth sports level, or rare in today's society. The music was loud, but not outrageously so. The players did agree to watch their language and turn down the music. When I was speaking to them, one or two of the guys became basically lippy, for lack of a better term, and they were harshed down by the other players that were there. The players appear to be working towards a solution that does not require moving the courts. At the end of the day, the Wilds Park is a public park. Anyone is welcome to use it, just as people from Sartell are welcome to use Lake George. In discussing this with a member of the community, they made the argument that these guys are not Sartell residents, and they shouldn't be allowed to be in our park because they don't pay taxes here in Sartell. I asked that person, do you go to Lake George? Well, yeah. Do you go to St. Cloud? Yeah. How do you get there? Well, I drive. Do you pay taxes for those roads? Do you pay taxes for that park? Their argument is wholly and completely without merit. For those of you that don't know, I am a prosecutor. I've worked in the criminal justice system my entire adult life. I've been a public defender in Ramsey County for 8 years. I am well versed in the criminal laws of the state of Minnesota. Neither I nor any law enforcement officer that I'm aware of has observed any conduct on behalf or on the part of those young men that is a violation of the law. I do not believe that any of the conduct I or law enforcement has observed could be successfully prosecuted at any level. If there are allegations of harassment or threats towards a few residents, those were not reported, and as such, enforcement is not actionable. I met with one family who reported that the court was being used from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. I drive past the court every morning, Monday through Friday, sometime between 7:45 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and I have never, during that time, seen anyone on that basketball court. Since Sunday, June 14th, I've checked the court twice between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. I have seen one group of players playing on 6/19/2020 at approximately 5:30 p.m.
Hey, Mike, just point of order. I don't know how much more you have. I want to give respect to others to be able to speak. First, we do have a
I'm almost done.
5-minute cap, and we're well beyond, so thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a 5-minute cap on council members speaking, but I'll be brief.
First go around we do, yep, Robert's Rules of Order.
Which we don't usually follow.
Continue on, or I'll move to the next. Hey,
The park,
thank you.
the Wilds Park was there well before individuals in that neighborhood that have concerns at this point bought their house. This is akin to buying a house next to a railroad track and then complaining when the trains go by. It is a neighborhood park. It's being used as a neighborhood park. I also took the opportunity to speak to several people that live around and next to the park. They don't want the park, they don't want the basketball court moved and do not see a problem. That creates a situation where to move an amenity from a city park to another city park based on the desires of one family creates a very, very difficult precedent. If we do something like that because one family wants it, then what do we do the next time a family doesn't like the fact that the kids are on the swing sets making noise? Do we move the swing sets? To move amenities from one park to another because a couple of residents are unhappy with it sets a dangerous precedent. There have been a number of posts on social media claiming that Sartell wants to move the park because black men are not welcome in their neighborhoods. It will be impossible to move the court without making that decision look like it was fueled by the fact that the basketball players are young black men. I believe that we have examined the situation and analyzed it based on the observations of staff, law enforcement, and council members. This problem seems to have resolved itself. I do not believe further action is warranted, and frankly, I think Sartell is better than this. Thank you.
Council, any other?
I'm sorry, one last thing, and then I'll move on. Prior to tonight's meeting, I counted 13 emails that we received as a city and as council members, all supporting not moving the basketball court out of the Wilds Park. I counted 2 emails. I counted 2 emails indicating that the park should be, that the court should be moved. Thank you.
Sorry. Fire call. Anyone else from council have anything to add?
Go ahead. I would
Jeff?
like to say just a couple items. Mike, I appreciate your comments. There's a lot there, so I don't really know where to begin or where to end. And it is very important in light of what's gone on in our country recently to be objective and look at it as we should. Thank you for the comments. Really, to me, it comes down to a noise issue, and if we have a different way of solving it, if it's solved itself already, well, great. Then maybe that is a direction we should look at. But I put myself in other people's shoes. The people I did talk to in the neighborhood, I had a gentleman tell me that these kids, and I don't really know who these kids were, and quite honestly, I don't know what color they were, what race they were, if they were from Sartell or anywhere. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. If somebody was catcalling my daughter or harassing my wife and it's next door, I'd be very upset. And Mike, I would ask you to put yourself in the shoes of those individuals. It's not a fun position to be in. I do have a daughter, and I would be pretty upset if somebody did that to me. I'm not sure if you have a daughter, but
I have two.
okay, how would you like it if someone did that to you? And it was right next door to your house.
I would be very unhappy about that, and I would try and address that through proper channels.
Okay.
I would not consider removing a park amenity because my feelings were hurt to be an appropriate action.
I understand. And maybe that is a direction we should look at, something that we should look at if the issue has been solved. Everybody is welcome in our community, everybody. As long as you come here and you obey the law and you behave yourself, you're welcome in our community. And that has to be very well known. Sartell is a very welcoming community. And come to our community, use our courts, use our parks. We have many, many parks here. We have a beautiful river. Come and enjoy it. But when you're here, you got to behave yourself. So if the issue has been solved, has it been? Have we had any more reports? Any more issues?
I am not aware that there have been any more issues. I am not aware that, with the exception of that one time, anybody has even been playing out there on the basketball court.
Chief, have you heard any other issues or anything been reported?
Not since Mike and I talked last weekend.
Okay. And oftentimes things don't get reported. People are afraid to report issues. They don't want to be
I
part
think
of the
also
public spectacle.
there's been some factors that have come into play on
Just
that.
real
Oh, I'm
quick.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm for the most part done. That's all I had to say.
I just think that this last week has not been probably a very good example of, due to weather and the fact that that was signs posted that this was a construction week. But needless to say, I think the support letters that I received, and we have acknowledged that there's been a number of emails sent to us in regards to like for and against, and both are very valid points of things that they like. I also think that when we took the tennis courts out of the Wilds Park, I think it was 2 years ago when we reconfigured the park and put the soccer field in, there was a void of tennis and pickleball options for that park. I think part of the discussion, and I know most of the discussion on this, occurred when the pickleball court was available, and we said, maybe the replacement of those tennis courts that were in that area might be a pickleball court on the sport court option. That's really the general consensus of the discussion. That might be a nice option to have. But I agree that there's been problems there. How we resolve those and how we do it in the best light. Do we need to study it more? Do we need to understand a little bit what are our options? Make it, a more public discussion? Sure, that's fine. I was looking at it as partially of replacing the tennis courts with something of a racket sport, for instance, the pickleball court, and leaving half the basketball court up. My kids play on it daily, so it's a neighborhood that I think has got a lot of different diversity as far as sports and needs and wants. There's swimming, there's the tennis, there's volleyball. There was tennis, basketball, and the playground. So what best way to suit that park need and that desire? What was it designed for? Is it a neighborhood park? Is it a regional park? Maybe we have to do an additional study on it to find out exactly what the best use of that space is for.
I agree, Tim. I see it as Watab Park really being a destination park where you have to almost drive to, whereas the Wilds Park's definitely a neighborhood park with surrounding houses around it more. Whether that means we should move that court or not, I don't know. It's definitely something up for debate, something maybe we should get more input from residents. All the emails and calls I received was for support of keeping it there. So with that said, I don't know really where the action should be placed at this time, and I think I would need more information.
Couple of items that I'd offer out is this goes back in council. We were made aware by city administrator on April 28th, I believe. There was an email to us of the beginning of complaints. I don't like the comparison of this versus hockey. I think that's out of line. I think if you purely look at the amount of traffic and what we as council have talked about over the past, I don't know, John, have we talked about it, four months to a year of traffic in that area? We added stop signs. And if you look at what we're doing in Wadtab Park, we've spent $1 million there, or nearing, with a new park shelter. We know as part of our County Road 1, we're looking to add bike paths, off-street bike paths to that park. I do believe this is a good amenity for that park. I had an opportunity earlier today to speak with Natalie with Unite Cloud, as she was being told that this was a race issue. And so I chatted with her for over a half hour, and she had a post out on social media, and after we got done talking, and she understood that the perspective out there was that we're tearing this up and telling people to bring their ball and go home, and that we're not, and that we're adding lights, we're offering restrooms, we're offering additional parking, and that truly everyone is welcome. She ended the call by saying, hey, I just took down my post, and I'm going to reach out to those that have already contacted me and share the info with them. So I think we need to make certain that whatever direction we go, that it is supporting, as I mentioned earlier, and that we're not taking something away from anyone, whether they're part of our city or part of our greater community. I would be in favor of continuing this plan, as staff had reviewed options. Again, I believe this in light of offering a better amenity for a full court basketball at a park, and we have to acknowledge there is tension there between all groups that play there and neighbors, and it's not a single group. All groups that play there, there's a level of tension, and I don't think it's fair for anyone grabbing a basketball to show up at that park to be part of that tension. And I think to Jeff's point, if we have an option like we do right now to simply pick up the tiles and put them in a spot where anyone showing up is going to absolutely feel welcomed, we should celebrate that. That's a very positive thing for our community, to be able to reduce that tension. So if there's anything else from anyone that wants to offer, Mike?
Just a couple of things. The traffic problems in Grizzly have nothing to do with the Wilds Park. The traffic issues that we've been addressing in Grizzly have to do with people going up and down Grizzly Lane, using it as a artery to get through to Pinecone. The parking issue at Wilds Park has never been an issue in the 12 years that I've lived here, going past that park on a daily basis. And it's never been brought to my attention, and I believe most other people, that it's not really an issue. The pickleball courts, if we move those, if the issue is noise, sport noise, pickleball is an exceedingly loud sport. People will be complaining potentially about that. You mentioned that we should do something so that people everywhere feel welcome. If we have to move the court to make people feel welcome, then we have to take the position that that's necessary because they feel unwelcome. So the question becomes, why do they feel unwelcome? I think Brady and Tim and Jeff have all brought up a very good point. We don't need to act right now. We don't need to send John and his staff out there to tear up that court tomorrow morning and move it. We have plenty of time to wait.
It is being replaced. I mean, it's not going away. There's a court there. People keep saying it's destroying that
Yeah.
court. It'll have a basketball court, half court anyways. It's not going away.
But the plan is to take the full court and move it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what I'm saying we don't need to do right now. We can wait. We can see if the efforts of the kids that are playing to tone things down works for the community and the families that have raised concerns. And I'm not unfeeling towards the individuals who are concerned about the noise and who feel that they've been threatened. You know, that happens, you know, and it's a horrible thing. And I do have 2 daughters. And quite frankly, if someone did that to my kids, yes, I'd be, excuse me, well, I'm not gonna say it, but I'd be very, very upset about that. But if someone threatened my daughter, I would go to law enforcement and I would say, someone's threatened my daughter, because that's a crime. Someone's harassed my daughter, that's a crime. My kid has my 17, or 18, excuse me, she's 18 now, she's walked right past that court time and time again when the kids have been playing, the young men have been playing, and she's had no problems. What I would suggest we do, and I would make this motion.
Just a call, we do have a motion on the table, on the floor right now.
All right, well, then.
We'll need to act on that before we take another motion.
Then I would move to amend the motion to table this discussion for further staff analysis and further input from the community, resulting in the Wilds Court being left as is until a date down the road when, after studying this and having a full conversation with staff, the community, and council, we can make a decision that's in the best interest of the community.
And I believe I was one that made the motion on that. So yeah, I would agree to tabling it for, you know, let's give it at least another couple of weeks and see how it goes down there. My biggest concern is that if any or all of the harassment continues or whatever's going on down there, we need to keep a closer eye on it. If it continues, then we're going to have to take action. And quite honestly, Mike, you're talking about taking this and moving it. If we move the court that's there now, we're actually just replacing it with a half court. So there's still going to be a court there. And then there's going to be other options there. So I think it's a good idea. It's just kind of coming together because of some of the issues that we had down there. But at this point, you know, I would agree to tabling this for at least another couple of weeks. And 2 weeks from now, our next meeting, not 2 weeks. But we'll, maybe we can look at it at that point.
Thank you.
Do you guys have the minutes? I don't know, who made the initial?
I think I made the initial motion.
And Brady seconded?
Brady seconded.
Yeah.
So Brady would have to amend his.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Staff, I want to, first, John, understand what that would do to your schedule, if anything.
It can stay as the way it's sitting, no problem.
Okay.
We'll just hold up the other court, or we can put the other court in, and at some point we can
Pick it up.
pick them up, switch. It's just the timing thing.
Sure.
It fits into the schedule.
Anna, if you've been significantly involved in this, you've talked with the different groups that I think actually maybe had reached out. Are you able to shed any light? Because I want to make sure we understand that this isn't, you as staff have been dealing with this for more than just the last week, and make sure that that's a factual out there.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. Obviously, this is a really sensitive issue for all of us right now. And I think one thing that I don't know that I've heard anybody mention is what do the basketball players out there think? So when this first happened, initially that week, I actually went out and played with them. And I had a blast. They are some of the most talented basketball players I have ever been around. Many of them are D1 or D2 college basketball players, actually, that are unable to get into gyms right now because the gyms are shut down. So my family and I went out there. I have a young son. We had a blast. ESPN is not playing basketball right now. So it's some of the best basketball we've seen in a long time. Had great conversations with them. And at that time, we were not talking about swapping the courts. At that time, the complaints had just initially started, and I wanted to go out there and see it for myself. And upon speaking with them, they admitted that their language is more of a natural habit when playing aggressive basketball, and also agreed to comply to the language. And there were some stray dog issues. There were some issues with them urinating without there being a bathroom around. We had a really awesome conversation, and at that time I informed them that this is a great amenity that we have in Sartell. You are welcome here. We love having you here. I could sit and watch you play basketball all day. I could play with you all day, but that we would be having a new court coming at WATAB, and they were thrilled. They were so excited to hear that this court would be in a location that would have lights, that they'd be able to play longer, that it would have bathrooms, that it would have a shelter, grilling features. So it's actually a part of what has been a strong consideration in this. Absolutely had nothing to do at all whatsoever with race. In fact, it couldn't have been any more of the opposite. I've raised African American babies. I have the utmost respect and had so much fun out there with those guys. It had nothing to do with that. We were just trying to come up with a solution where everybody could win in this one. So if we have hurt anybody in that process, I deeply, deeply apologize. That was absolutely not the intent. We thought we came up with a solution that was appreciated by the people who are using the court after conversations with them directly.
Should have asked you to come up and speak earlier. That was.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
And I think that's important. I haven't been to the court. I drive by it a fair amount. I've had people call me that their sons play at maybe daughters play at the park. And as I share that this park isn't being ripped up and that we are truly in the best interest of moving it to a better amenity, people are happy about it. There's a sense of excitement, as Anna, you'd shared. And so I know the narrative has wandered on this, and I really think that council, as we consider this, whether this be tonight or whether this be next council meeting, that it truly is supporting it and encouraging more people to come with lights, with better amenities. So we have a motion that's been amended. Anyone else on the subject?
I appreciate Brady and Jeff and Tim's positions, and you know, as I said, I also had conversations with the guys, and they were very, very upset with the idea that they were being moved or what have you. So I do think, especially in light of the 13 emails that we've received prior to today, that this entire situation needs more time to simmer. That's what we should do. Jeff, you are absolutely correct. If crimes are committed, I want to encourage every citizen out there, if there is a problem, if you feel threatened, if you are assaulted, if you feel harassed, if you feel stalked, if you are in any way, shape, or form abused by people playing basketball or anybody else in the community, call the police. That's what they are there for. And we have an excellent police department that is respectful of every person that they encounter, regardless of the circumstances. And I can say that from personal experience because I've had situations where I've made calls for service, where I've needed police help. And the men and women that responded to my home behaved and conducted themselves in a respectful and professional manner, the likes of which I could not have wanted any more. It could not have been a better experience. And because of the actions of the officers that day, my son, who I was having some issues with, is planning on going into law enforcement. He wants to be a cop because of the people that work for the city of Sartell in law enforcement. So I'm going to ask that we table this, do some more work on it, and make a decision down the road when we've had time to really look at it.
So the motion on the table, as it sits right now, is to have staff continue to review the options and bring this forward to our next council meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anyone else wishing to make a comment before I call for a vote? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item up for business is new business, reopening City Hall. Turn it over to one of you.
Mayor, members of the council, as you know, with COVID, we have had City Hall shut down. It has remained closed, and wanted to have the discussion around when you would feel it would be an appropriate time to reopen, and if so, what scheduling format, if you want to open to regularly scheduled hours as normal, or if we want to make some sort of a phased-in approach.
Council not looking for a motion, simply some conversation about what do we see our plan moving forward is. Action.
I guess I would ask staff how they feel with phasing in compared to full hours.
I think it would be more manageable if we could phase in some sort of a, open from like 10 to 2 with appointments before or after. I think as COVID continues, we are noticing its impacts on staffing levels. When you have an exposure to COVID that involves needing to stay home for a certain duration of time, which then means we're short-staffed. So it makes it difficult to completely staff City Hall. We've had that experience happen already once. So if we could phase into it and work with what that schedule might look like as we continue to build out our online systems, I think that would be more manageable, but am open to whatever your thoughts are.
I think that makes sense. I haven't heard from anyone that isn't able to get service, and frankly, it's been an eye-opener that we've been able to remain closed, but stay connected and servicing our community via phone, email, or after-hour type stuff. We are also looking at implementing technology, which will probably modify that anyways, so.
Absolutely, I would agree.
Consensus on having staff have a modified schedule?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Looks like there's consensus on that.
Sure, and we can make sure that we post that on social media
Yeah.
and, share it out publicly so that people are aware that we are opening, but it'll be a little bit different than what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
I see department reports next in finance, but I don't see John.
I am finance. Happy to help, answer any questions.
He skipped out right after the bond sale, so.
He's smart. He's been around.
Consultants, I tell you.
Any questions on the finance report? Seeing none? City council updates, Mike.
Nothing further.
Tim.
I just I had a nice walk around the lake last night after got some ice cream and went to Cold Stone and walked around the lake with my family on Father's Day. It was a beautiful night for it. However, I did notice we have a geese problem. Those lights that are the blinking strobe lights, have they been effective at all? No. But the amphitheater looks amazing. I can't wait to throw a blanket down and get out there and watch some music. And it's going to be amazing. It's right there. Last night would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Except for those dang geese. But I think we could work on a solution as we go forward to keep them out of the music area. Be great.
Seems that we've seen some help. We put the blocks along that area. Seems it's helped somewhat for them walking up there.
There was probably a good 500.
Did you chase them off?
I did.
Okay.
But
I would've
I
liked to see
volunteer to
that.
take my dog down there and chase them off every time if you need, because she could use the energy or exercise. But yeah, so great. I'm excited to get that open and get a concert out there and get some music going, because it's going to be a really neat venue. So look forward to that.
Yep. Brady.
Nothing tonight.
Jeff.
Nothing.
The only thing I wanted to highlight that came out of the open forum is the shelter or the outdoor rink, and that's been brought to my attention as well in the community. And that outdoor rink's been scheduled by the Youth Hockey Association for the last couple of years, so it really hasn't been fully accessible to our community. And I'm someone that grew up playing hockey, both organized and just pickup hockey. And I think knowing that rink will be repurposed somewhere else in our community at a future date is a positive. It actually isn't taking an amenity away. It's opening it up more to kids or people in our greater community. So want to make sure there's not confusion on that as we move forward.
Just, can I ask a question?
Mike.
Because I was under the impression that it was going to be demolished. So where are we going to store it someplace until we figure out where to put it up again? Or what's the plan of attack on that?
The rink in itself, the boards, I guess I haven't, but staff, I've never heard anything about it being demolished. I've heard hey, where can we put this in the community?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been. The money is just not there. We bought it from a used
Yeah.
Superior. It was on
Okay.
make a decision when the time
Well, that's great, because it was my understanding that we pledged $72,000 to basically eliminate it, and I was under the impression that that's what was going to happen. It was going to turn into rubble and get hauled away somewhere. So if we're in a position where we can repurpose that and put it in another park somewhere for open skate, that would be phenomenal. That would save us money theoretically also. So.
Yeah, I think it's a great amenity. The warming house there does have to come down simply due to code, and it's too close to the addition that's being added on. I know staff has reviewed that, hey, you really can't move it. It's a, yeah. So.
Okay.
So it has to be moved. I know you talk about code, but so is it 6 feet too close or 10 feet too close? I mean, we can't just leave it there? I haven't seen the actual footprint. All right. And the arena itself is too close. We can't leave the arena where it sits.
It's right at the top.
The arena's going closer to the other building though, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's between the two buildings, aisleway.
Sure.
Okay.
With that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.